Hello, everyone. It's me, Clayton. I just finished watching Death on the Nile, starring Kenneth Branagh, Gal Gadot, and Annette Bening, Armie Hammer, and Russell Brand. Now, when it comes to the classic Hercule Poirot stories, when it comes to classic detective works, they're possibly some of the most beloved by Agatha Christie. And when it comes to this latest installment, Kenneth Branagh, I think, has improved his work over Murder at the Orient Express. It still isn't perfect, but I do think it's definitely able to stand on its own a bit more than that one. Let's get to the story, though, shall we? After we get a brief little origin story for Hercule Poirot and his time during World War I, we happen to see him after he's successfully completed a case in Egypt. And he's asked to attend the wedding of Armie Hammer and Gal Gadot's characters as they happen to try and have their honeymoon on the Nile River aboard a fabulous cruise ship with enough champagne to fill the Nile itself. However, once a certain death happens on that ship, Hercule has to go into his classic detective mode to figure out who managed to get away with the crime, who's the murderer, do they have any accomplices, and find out everyone's motivations for why they're there and why they happen to have a grudge against the wife. But that's all I'll say about the story. As you might guess, considering I kind of staged this whole thing like an interrogation, this movie certainly has an intense second half, but the first half is a bit lighter and definitely more of a dull slog to get through. I wouldn't say a slog. It's more like it takes a little while for the more interesting stuff to get into the focus. Because when Branagh and Poirot himself are the focus of the movie, it's really good, and it happens to get into its dark material with gusto, and Branagh happens to give one of his better performances in this film. It's just slogging through the first half that gets a little tiresome after a little while. I know the whole point of a lot of these detective stories is to get us to understand and like these characters first, but this one feels like it takes up a little too much time in that regard. Especially since Armie Hammer and Gal Gadot don't exactly have the best chemistry with each other, and their acting can be kinda wooden. Though some other characters, like Russell Brand's doctor, do get a chuckle out of me occasionally, and even Annette Bening's character and a few others do manage to liven up the film's supporting cast, even when a few cast members kind of feel like they're doing this for the sake of a paycheck. However, as in comparison to the train setting of Orient Express, the pyramids and the statues of Egypt happen to make for a much more visually interesting setting, and Hercule Poirot's origin story does develop his character a bit more in comparison to Orient Express, and it happens to add a bit more drama and finality to this performance in comparison to the first one. However, the writing here really only soars in the second half when the mystery gets underway. The comedy in the first doesn't always work out, but it does a good job with when it comes to certain build-ups for red herrings and certain details that you have to remember later. They do seem to come pretty naturally in this film. Not to mention that red herrings actually revolve around to be not kind of a bait and switch and a reverse red herring in a sense, which is why I think the mystery plotline holds up so well. So yeah, I don't think it's the best Hercule Poirot film, but out of the two films that Kenneth Branagh has done, I do think this one is the superior one. That's when I'm going to give it a 7.5 out of 10. See you next time.